Canada, the country, waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who have lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our
Happy MK Canada. Happy MK Canada. How you guys doing tonight? Good to see you. I'm Andreas. And then here's Kurt from American Time Machine. Vincent's also with us. And Stephanie's back. How you all doing tonight? What's up?
Good.
I wanted to show you something crazy. So where was it? Okay, World Economic Forum. This is first before we get into the crazy stuff. I just wanted to fact check. The World Economic Forum did not place restrictions on vaccinated pilots at Davos. Just so you know, they said that the forum banned vaccinated pilots from flying conference attendees for some reason. I don't know. I didn't say this, but this was something that was like circulating. It's not true at all, I guess. But there is something weird that was going on. I mean, there's something they were talking about that they were saying that there were concerns, and this has come out in the last month, that Bill Gates and a lot of people have been saying that the vaccines weren't good enough. They didn't trust them, that maybe there was even some sort of a danger to them. However, this is saying, no, they're not isolating from people who've been mutated with the vaccine or something like that. Right. So we can all calm down. Okay. Where was the one I wanted?
Well,
no.
Isn't it because they're afraid that they're just going to like pass out, get heart attacks and seizures? And
yeah, pilots who have, well, how do you say this? I don't know. Gosh, do you think that might be why they're talking about it? Do you think that
there an increase of crashes after the launch of?
I don't know. Is there?
I don't know.
I gotta imagine it'd be weird. It'd be really weird if, but I don't know. I imagine that there's. Let's look it up. I mean, I'm sure that SADS, sudden adult death syndrome, and pilots. I haven't heard any. Have you guys heard any mention of sudden adult death syndrome pilot? I want to see that. Dead, cardiac, something, anything. Army pilots risk sudden. Ooh, okay. News. So the Army flight surgeon says pilots risk sudden cardiac death from COVID vaccine side effects. Army flight surgeon, is this true? Which got Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long recently filed an affidavit stating there is a risk of myocarditis. Okay. I'll listen to Teresa Long. I feel like if you didn't want someone to crash a helicopter that was, $13 million worth of people and stuff in that helicopter, right? So you probably would get medical research and you'd listen. I mean, they make decisions based on astrology, right? So if a doctor tells them they should be careful about this, I don't see why that's too contrarian. Jordan jumping in. What's up, Jordan? How's it going?
Hey, guys. Sorry, I'm late. Good to see everyone.
We're tiptoeing into a really dangerous precipice here to talk about
my
this subject.
favorite thing to do.
But what do you think it is that the Army flight surgeon, Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long, said that sudden cardiac death from COVID vaccine side effects would be a risk for pilots? And, this is also, again, after the fact check saying that Davos certainly did not. Where did it go? Did I close it? Davos said that they didn't restrict pilots. Where was my Davos article? I lost it. Oh, there it is, right there. Fact check. World Economic Forum says they did not place official restrictions on vaccinated pilots at Davos. Right. However, the military is starting to talk about, and there's affidavit that, hey, there's responsibilities here. Should we, we've been saying for a while, this sucks. This is dangerous. It's terrible how it's destroying families. Boo-hoo for me and you. But here it is destroying corporations and government. Right. I mean, so isn't all of a sudden that going to matter? Will they care all of a sudden? I mean, it sounds like they are.
For sure they will. Because that's all that matters, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're Bill Gates. You want everyone to get vaccinated. Do you want your pilot to get vaccinated?
No.
And how many hours do you want to be in that plane with them?
Probably not. Yeah, I mean,
Things I hadn't really considered before, like the sports thing and all the money that's in this. Like if you were to be all of a sudden for any reason just disabled, for any reason at all, let's just say, I don't know. That seems kind of crazy. Okay, well, this is on a sidetrack, but it still seemed important to me. Hans Rudolph Rudy says that he runs a 5-star Davos hotel. He relies on Red Bull and chocolate to keep the morale up during the World Economic Forum. So, I mean, is the world being run by Red Bull? And is Red Bull really just taurine? And what is that? Is it? You've heard this? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like the taurine and Red Bull.
Yeah, is it synthetic bull something, right?
I haven't been a Red Bull drinker for
Synthetic
15 years, it seems like.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
Is it synthetic bull testosterone? Fact check.
What?
Red
I
Bull
don't
taurine.
know.
It doesn't contain bull sperm. I know that's the urban legend. But what does it actually contain?
It
That's the
probably
question.
actually does contain both. Well, it's synthetic now there, but
Right. It's probably cheaper.
Usually, if they say it doesn't, then it does.
Taurine. It contains taurine.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
Maybe
Coca-Cola. They're going to say that it contains some things, doesn't contain others. We can't verify it. It's secret.
Right.
It may or may not contain anything.
It just extracts one chemical from bull sperm, and therefore it doesn't qualify as actual bull sperm.
Can you imagine the factory for
That's
that?
right, Kurt.
I mean, dude, there's something going. I mean, first off, aren't they like Austrian brothers? And then Red Bull's constantly bringing back a mammoth or jumping from space or some crazy thing that they're doing. I mean, Red Bull is the official drink of Davos. It feels like, right? Like it's this hyper energy drink, and it seems pretty crazy. But also the fact that it's made of synthetic bull testosterone or whatever taurine is supposed to be, which I don't completely understand, but that's why they're saying Red Bull gives you wings. I don't get the mythology there.
Is it carbonated?
It's
I don't think
high,
I've ever
that's
actually
why.
drank.
I mean, it gives
Wait,
you
Red
wings
Bull's
because it gets you
carbonated.
high.
Yeah. Well, like anything carbonated is honestly just awful for you. Like
I don't know about
Yeah.
that. I like
Yeah,
carbonated water. Really?
Yeah, me too.
Great, but I mean,
well, I guess there's some room for nuance. Most of the time, if you have carbonated drinks, they're also really like salty, so none of them actually
Yeah.
hydrate you.
Well,
So-
actually, sometimes if you have a little bit of salt, like the Apollonia waters and these like microsodiums in the geyser waters, that can, that actually helps you store some of it and
Right.
actually become more hydrated by the water.
Yeah, I think that there's
electrolytes.
mountains of difference between that and artificial additions, I'm sure. But yeah,
There's something very strange about water without anything in it. That's not a usual thing. We're not
That's the
supposed
European in you.
that too. No, I just mean mud. Water comes with mud
Oh,
usually.
I thought you
like,
just meant bubbles.
Minerals.
that's true too. I agree.
Sparkling
This
juices
and
still.
all sorts of
That
stuff.
is the European in me. But I did mean just in general that water's not normally just so pure. And I mean, I guess it is in some places, but that freaks me out. Like Rocky Springs water. I mean, the
Yeah,
idea
maybe
that
it's like-
water just loses all of its minerals through filtration, becomes totally placid, is just like, that's terrifying.
Maybe it's just like a byproduct of burning hydrogen, and that's where they get their water without anything in it. They're just like, hey, we have all this water on the side. Let's just give it to the poor people.
I mean, I guess like the point really wasn't the Red Bull. It's more just about like the psychopathy of the Davos conventions and the Davos men, these Swiss dudes whose lives are all on expense cards that are your tax dollar or whatever expenses you're paying these, 25 $100 or $25,000 an hour for these guys to exist. And it just seems like that can't last forever, or it has to be somehow shifting. And all the while we keep talking about this great reset, here they are like planning it, but they're not seeming to be too worried about it. So if they're not going to lose their positions of being able to live like $25,000 an hour, then where are we headed?
Well, I mean, it seems to be pointing to some sort of massive divide between the rich and the poor. Like it'll be a pure class system, and we're gonna get whatever they can bioengineer as cheaply as possible to control us and to feed us while they get everything they want.
Yeah.
That's a bad picture. Right there.
Something about the future just seems really close is the other thing. So what was the Taiwan and stuff like Philippines is granting U.S. More territory or more access to the coast and the northwest coast in order to prepare for Taiwanese invasion. Taiwan started preparing. I mean, there seems like how long before we're straight up in war? I mean, last year we said, okay, it was going to happen by summer. And theoretically, they started to encroach upon them. But it took so long that people basically stopped caring about it, it feels like. I don't hear very much about Taiwan in the news. And it seems like we're about to hit the actual conflict.
It's all about the Ukraine right now, man. That's what
is it low,
That's
right?
all we're. Well, I mean, that's what we're supposed to care about right now. That's
like the FTX crypto of wars. It's like the
Oh, absolutely.
Sentiment is honestly crazy right now. Well, between financial policy, some people are saying it's getting looser. It's not really getting looser, but they've moderated their rate increases, and there's just been weird stuff going on in that area market, and in terms of the market, because we just had 3 major earnings of like the top 10 Fortune 500 companies, and all 3 of them missed their earnings, which is a very unusual occurrence in general. Apple missed for the first time in 7 years that I
but I mean that's so the other thing, profits.
Yeah,
that was a really funny, ironic. Wow.
Different.
Okay. So most of that just said a lot about my brain right now. So a lot of the companies are reporting the highest profits in history, and the ones that aren't are the ones that we're predicting to. And it seems like they did this on purpose. So Apple, let's talk about Apple International money.
Yeah, I theorized
Apple
today
has
that
billions of dollars outside of the United States that they cannot access in the United States. They can only access it in overseas places. So Apple can buy islands, yachts, everything. They were paying Steve Jobs $1 a year. That was his salary. It's all part of this brilliant Rockefeller plan. Again, Venrock was the first financier of Apple. So they know, and they were very careful. And Apple hit its all-time high right as Steve Jobs was exited, for the second time. So it's important. It's important that they took over Apple, and then also what Apple was doing with Samsung, because Samsung built all the technology. LG and Samsung built a lot of the technology for Apple at that point. And then they've segued into RISC. RISC was the chipset that existed. It's open source, and that's what Apple's doing to defeat Intel. All Intel ever did was make better versions of IBM's chip design, right? Because the military made IBM design chips, and they said, well, we can't print them all the time. That's impossible. It's impossible to make chips like this. We can design them. And then Intel made them better. So the military was the only reason this ever scaled. And, we're always like, oh, man, consumerism. How will the world function without consumerism? Well, it seems like just fine. Apple will be integrated directly into the military industrial complex. But China's maybe not are. And so this is like the Huawei, China, Apple conundrum.
Now, I theorized they sold less iPhones because due to inflation, people had to pick between their iPhone and their acrylic nails. So it's like you got to have priorities,
I've been wanting acrylic nails for long. I was thought if they just were like a little bit more pearlescent, I want them to look like my nails, but just more. You know what I mean?
You don't want the claws.
Yeah, you do.
You know what I'm saying? Money laundering is an interesting thing, though. Also, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. So earlier today, I was at this taqueria if you can call it that. And it's just the
Nice.
entire area of the strip mall. I was like, wow, first off, they destroyed nature, etc. And, but we've all gotten past this kind of. Second off, it's like there's this shop that I just feel bad even talking about it because I don't want to stop people from living their dream. But it's just, have a better cover than like the bird shop or whatever. Like that just sells weird like knickknacks about birds, but nobody's in it ever. And we just sell bird houses. That's like season 3 of Weeds. It's straight up out of the show.
Dude, it's like have you guys seen Super Troopers? It's like Bunty Soap Company.
Oh, dude.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Nice. There we go. Bunty Soap.
The dude.
That's what when me and my friend, he's a comedian, and whenever we see trucks that look sketchy like that, we always call them Bunty Soap.
That is the thing, because you don't know what's inside of them. And then we've talked about how $12 bags of popcorn, super easy for laundering money in general. So, the corporations do this, and you have to imagine in California, it's probably cannabis, but in the Midwest, it's probably meth. And on the East Coast, it could be slightly more interesting. And in Canada, too. Like, it might be counterfeit cigarettes from Russia or something that are brought. They'll put new boxes on cigarettes that are fake, and then they'll sell them. And they've got 100 different gas stations that are selling these counterfeit cigarettes, which are in the correct boxes. Really weird, creative scams that'll exist. But they're all tied in through corporations. I don't know. I wanted to jump into super cows. What do you think about super cows? Is that like a major segue? Like, is that crazy to jump to super? Super cows are a thing. Have you seen the super cows? Muscles. Okay, so this is not to say that Chinese invented super cows. Is all I'm trying to say. Let's start with America. America first. Okay, and credit where credit's due.
Wait, didn't the Nazis try to make aurochs?
I was just gonna say this looks more like a Nazi project.
You guys are just.
Like, come on, it's not always the Nazis.
No. Sometimes it always is, and then this time I think you might be right. That's the thing. So, cattle growing, Nazi cattle, genetic.
Is that supposed to be a bull?
That is a bull.
No, dude.
It drank too much Red Bull. That's what happens.
It looked like it had an extra appendage on it.
A couple.
Okay. So. The Heck cattle originated in Germany, right? They're a hardy breed of cattle. Controversy sorry that you brought that up because I had to remember this. Controversy revolves around the methodology and success of the program. They are considered differences between the Heck cattle and the Oryx in build, height, and proportions. Heck originated in Germany in the 1920s and 30s in an attempt to breed back domestic cattle to their ancestral form, the Oryx. In the first years of the Weimar Republic, the brothers Heinz and Lutz Heck independently started their extensive breeding back programs. Yeah, so it's exactly what you just said. And what they ended up finding was that there are certain genes which make the protein, increase the production of protein, or also the muscle hormone. So then they ended up finding that you could isolate that and you could make sure that other cattle have it. And, the all-American version is this. And it's not technically too weird. This is basically similar, but it's not like
hormones. It's for sure. It's filled with animal growth hormones. There's no way around it.
No. This is not. This is not filled. This is not filled with RBST. This is actually where they've genetically groomed the species to have this happen. And so that's. I don't know, man. I like alligator. Alligator's like 80% muscle.
Alligator.
But I don't know if you can
livestock.
Like a gator.
You go jump the alligator.
Yeah, the thing is, the point really that we should be making is that you could be a vegetarian and look like that. I think that's really what's interesting. But also that this thing is not necessarily on drugs is important, because what it says about human super cloning is that, or super breeding, is that there really are these eugenic programs. And when they talk about the super soldiers, they're talking, this is what the Chinese are doing with super soldiers, right? Super soldiers, France, China.
That's how they make their athletes too.
In general, that's how everyone makes athletes. This is how humanity kind of works. But there are state-sponsored and corporate-sponsored programs to take it to levels that are, pretty much scarier than whatever the Germans did with cows or humans. This is actually the next level, where it's going to be in your hometown as soon as it's been created in a lab somewhere else. And how far is that from human, right? But also, what does that mean about these animals? I mean, what are we headed into? Because the future is going to be freaking weird. We're going to have dodo birds back. We saw the other day they're bringing back dodo birds from extinction.
Nice.
And no, not nice. There's
No?
nothing good
Oh,
about birds
sorry.
are friggin' already horrible. Like, there's nothing good about this starve-crazed reptile dinosaur that wants to attack you. And if you've seen Jurassic Park, like, these are those little ones that go on the ground. Those ones, they just didn't have the CGI for feathers. This is what they really look like. Dodo birds, man.
Okay.
And these things can be, they'll kill you. I don't want to deal with dodo.
My experience of dodo birds is from that animated show Animal Crackers. So
Right. No, I mean, imagine you, like, I could see a good movie about it where dodos are back and you just need a gun, you know? And you have to shoot them from like 4 feet away because otherwise,
all
it's
you
just-
need, dog.
but they're right in your face. I don't know. This is the future. Is they're bringing back these animals? You've heard the Davos talk about mastodon. Let's look that up. I don't know. It's been like a month since I've looked into it. Mammoth.
Like, in the meantime, your point about all these super soldiers, I'm wondering if it's like easier to biologically engineer people or to engineer artificial intelligence into robots. Like, which one is, like, we're getting two versions of horror stories at the same time, but which one is supposed to be more effective, or which one do we fantasize about being more effective?
Might depend on how much money and time you have and like what kind of conditions you have to kind of put it to work. But
I think it's like a
good
you
point.
combine it. You can use them both together in certain ways, right? So there's enough data to train AI to do most of these tasks, but then if you could isolate people enough that imagine, right, if you couldn't see everybody for like a while and you had to interact with them over a computer and you couldn't be sure that they were real, but you could think that they were real, like a Turing test, and it was like for a couple of years or something like that. Or maybe even you raise the kids where they don't look at faces for a while just so that they're confused about what is real. Then you might be able to get to a point where people can interact with machines back and forth to build this hive system easier, right?
It's like, this is, I don't know if this is like in something I've seen already, but like,
2019.
no, I imagine in a society we just like, we clone people and we clone their bodies and to be super soldiers, but then we just replace their programming and essentially they're just slaves, but we ethically justify it. Like, oh, they're not really people. We reprogram them. It's
It'll happen, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen it in movies yet, but I know it's coming, right? And that's the really interesting thing to me is that you'll be able to stop somebody from sinning if that you want them to. So it's really, you'll be able to make someone so powerful, like all powerful, supernaturally powerful, but they'll only be able to do what they're allowed to do. And that's pretty scary. We're not getting to a point of further expansion of mobility or choice. But maybe that will be, this is the thing about Orson Welles, right? H.G. Wells, The Time Machine, is that the characters of humans evolve into Eloi and the Morlocks so that you don't just have one kind of humanity. And it makes you kind of wonder, did we already do that? Are we already living in a society that's evolved to be predator and prey?
Okay. What about, this is like a little bit different, but have you seen the movie THX 1138?
Great choice.
There you go. Look that one up. Throw that one up there if you want. I just thought I'd throw that one in the mix.
Yeah, this is actually shot pretty close to my house. I should go to the
That's cool.
parking structure. It's
Robert Duvall. You got Robert Duvall in there. Okay, cool.
The San Mateo parking structure because they wanted it to look like kind of this dystopia based on our current urbanism, our urban fetishism, really like a lack of humanity in all of our parking structures. And if you go to California's parking structures, it really is just like one Mateo parking structure. THX 1138. Probably can find a picture of it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is just. Why would you do this? It's in the middle of the redwood forest where there's like beautiful trees and stuff. Well, however, because of that, it's like it kind of works in this weird way, like glass, steel, concrete. This brutalism because everything is so freaking beautiful in nature. You're not competing with it. I don't know. It almost makes sense, but. The idea in the movie is you're not in that circumstance, and eventually he stops doing what he's told. They made him marry somebody that it doesn't work out. The guy is trying to hack the system, this other guy, so he can marry him, break the rules. And in the process of trying to escape, it becomes more and more expensive for the system to try to catch him, right? To the point that it's actually prohibitively expensive to catch him.
Right.
Every shot in that film is stunning. The cinematography in it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's an underrated one in my opinion. For sure.
I found it a bit, it kind of, to me, it seemed it could have been edited somewhere middle to the end. It really kind of drags on.
I don't know. See, that's actually for
But-
me, it's the opposite. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this movie in the middle doesn't make sense until the ending. And
Yeah,
there is a
there's-
cut, there is a shorter version of it, but then, because it wasn't very popular and he couldn't, but the director's version of it is the longer version. And the idea is he's building up this problem.
Mm.
Usually is, yeah.
And then the end of the movie, he realizes, you have to realize how expensive it would be, how horribly expensive it would cost for them to stop trying to stop you, because it's all about showing other people that they can stop you.
Yeah. It's poisonous water. It spreads and it can be tough. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Have you seen I think this is a little off or not a related movie, but Andreas, you mentioned a German movie last week. Were you talking about World on a Wire?
World on a Wire.
It's a very Kubrick-like and inspired. I'm pretty sure it's German. Yeah, there we go.
I did not bring this up. What's this one? Right.
Criterion.
I forget, what's this movie about?
Sorry, one sec. I actually haven't seen it yet.
German science fiction television serial shot on 16mm. Present day cybernetics and future science institute for Kybernetik. Now supercomputer hosts a simulation program that includes artificial world with more than 9,000 identity units who live as human beings, unaware that the world is just a simulation. Professor Vollmer, who is the technical director of the program, is apparently on the verge of an incredible secret discovery. He becomes increasingly agitated and antisocial before dying in a mysterious accident. His successor, Dr. Fred Stiller, has a discussion with Gunther Laus, the secret advisor of the institute, when the latter suddenly disappears without a trace before he is able to pass on Vollmer's secret to Stiller. More mysterious still is the fact that none of the other IKZ employees seem to have any memory of Laus. Meanwhile, one of their identity units in the simulation attempts suicide. The unit is deleted by Stiller's colleague. Okay. So already for 73, talking about AI units that are living in the system, Einstein switches his mind into Wolfgang's body while Stiller is in contact with the simulated world. Einstein gives Stiller an explanation for the mystery, his vanishing memory and vanishing persons, telling him that the Stiller's world is nothing but a simulation of the real world, which is one level above. Okay, is this what the South Park Vindaloop is really kind of about? I wonder if they're referencing.
Sorry, yeah, because I just added it to my Criterion collection there. So,
dude, a movie based on the same novel, The 13th Floor. Okay, so this is the original 13th Floor. Interesting. I've never seen this.
With dashes of Stanley Kubrick, Kurt Vonnegut, and Philip K. Dick.
Oh, Kurt.
Based on the novel Simulacron 3. Yeah, there's another one. I don't know what movie I was talking about last time, the German movie.
That just stuck in my mind, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it just has a bit of that, some of those themes and some of those cold settings and feelings throughout, I guess. So
yeah, Seth brings up often on Venice Beach Sub Club, brings up an interesting point, really, which is that how much would it matter to you if you didn't? I mean, if you found out today that you were a Cylon, right? How much would that really change anything? Because obviously, you would be in the middle of of being yourself. It wouldn't really matter. You're already doing what you're doing. You just decide it's because you're a machine now, instead of worrying about the fact that you're a meat puppet or something. So, I mean, the fact that we are machines, I think, is more of a self-realization that's coming. But so many people are going to be dealing with an AI or a robot and saying, you're not a real person, but aren't they just about the same thing at a certain point? Like, what's it take for this person? It's Pinocchio, right? Like, how do they become real?
I guess it's like inner perception, maybe, and empowerment over what you think is real. Talking about cyborgs and stuff, right? And Pinocchio-like beings.
It seems like they're human as soon as they believe they're human. I mean, as far as we define human, it's just a definition. It's not even a scientific term. So if they want to be defined as human, I mean,
Right.
if anyone can be defined as a woman or a man, isn't the next thing that a cyborg can be defined as a human, right?
What's the definition of a humanoid?
Like human,
Humanoid. It's like a body structure.
Okay.
right? Having human characteristics.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like biped and 2 arms, head.
Oid meaning resembling, right? I don't think that's enough, right? If they say that they feel like they're a human, like I feel like I'm a woman.
Well,
Don't you have to believe them?
there's a difference between like human or person or like earthling. You know, like if we met an alien, would we regard them as people, or probably not humans? But you know, we have to see that sort of human, like that sort of consciousness as something that we can relate to them with. So if we have
That's
an AI,
the thing. Star Wars is super racist, right? Like Star Wars,
Oh,
the whole idea of Star Wars is that we're dealing with foreigners, aliens, right? Like they're from a different place. And
right.
so how do they present them? Well, they look
Disgusting, and
they look like really disgusting
like
versions
a Chinese dude, right? Like that's really messed
I mean,
up. or
hey,
something.
you know what I
Some
mean?
sort
Like
of-
sure.
some sort
But
of
the thing
Asian.
is, look,
And-
I mean, we could call it racist, but from the perspective of like, you know, seeing a new alien culture, to them some things will be disgusting about us, and to them, like for us,
But
some
that's
things will be
the-
disgusting
but
about them.
but we're the
That's-
ones
And so
taking
it feels
in. I
more
think that's
realistic than a lot of
absurd.
these other depictions. Like Avatars, everyone's super hot and like perfect, and it's just like that to me is more racist than Star Wars. You
I
know,
like this
where
guy,
everyone's
right.
Perfect.
Nice, attaboy.
No, that's true. Zizek would say
Everyone
that.
wants to fuck them basically, and that's the
Vince.
the only thing that matters.
That's probably worse.
Look
You're
at
right.
this guy.
I mean, but it's true in Star Wars that it's not just that the show is racist, it's about our own racism. You're right. Because people look at each other like aliens and their cultures are so different. And so they just
Right.
take recordings of different languages, and that
Yeah.
is enough to
Yeah.
show how alien we think we are to each other.
Well, that's the thing, you know,
That's
like
right.
the Empire uses authoritarianism to try to control all the alien populations, while the Jedi use mind manipulation, basically. So,
Yes.
I
so
mean,
they
and they're still
control-
kids.
They control the commoners and the lessers
That's
with
right.
using Jedi mind tricks, and then the Sith use violence and oppression. But
I mean,
yeah,
I feel kind of like the Jedi use a little bit of violence too. The Jedi get off a lot easy.
sure, of course, you know. But for them, it's justified because Sith or something, you know.
That's right,
Yeah.
Sith, buddy. Oh, this
Yeah.
freaking guy.
I like that one. I forget his name, Masameda or something like that. He goes evil slowly in the background to Star Wars prequels. He just starts collecting stuff. He gets a couple gifts, and it's just the first gift from Sidious or Palpatine. Just then he's another thing, and then he starts a collection, and that collection gets him onto like evil. All of a sudden, he's collecting like evil books and stuff like that, and turns Sith. It's pretty great. I like watching.
Crowley over here.
Just
Jeez.
completely, it's really funny to watch like Palpatine in Star Wars. I think it's an underrated arc. Palpatine, I mean, I like that scene with Mace Windu at the end, right?
Well, now that Disney's got a hold of it, you're gonna get every story arc in every freaking format now.
But this is like the most brilliant, if you think about it, you know, granted it's a movie series, but he's built it into this thing where everything has happened and woven together so that he's able to just sit there and watch as it happens. Like Sidious sits on the ground and he's set it up so that it's like a conveyor belt, and Mace Windu's moved by the Force into this position he has to be. Anakin's moved into the position he has to be. And then Anakin does what he has to do because Mace Windu does what he has to do, which ends up leaving everyone out of the equation. It's just brilliant. I think that's it's so demonstrative of the left or the right trying to, because you've got both sides in Star Wars, and they're pushing so hard that it's making this little old man more powerful, right? And I think it's pretty true. That's literally not a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's just every day, here and now.
Fair
Time's
enough.
relative.
Okay.
Star Wars Trade Federation. I wish there was, I don't know, like the idea, this again, with the whole racism, though, because they're from Indonesia and they have to side. It seems like this is exactly what's going on with Indonesia right now. Today, did you see that? Indonesia courting China, USA as well. China and the United States are both like trying to date Indonesia, and Indonesia's like, oh, I guess we're the popular one now. And it's amazing watching like the wedding gifts, because it's like, here a fat pig, no, here a fatter pig. It's like every step along the way. Look at them holding hands and everything. It's just, I don't know, but they're moving towards this this goal, and I feel like Star Wars is the way to look at it. I mean, maybe not so alien, though. We need to recognize how anything alien is really just here and now.
I don't know. I see them all as Skeksis.
You just got a
Like
mad,
young-
you just got a
young
mad
spec.
super chat tip there, man. You might
I
wanna
think they
check
just.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
They just
yeah.
need
I'll
to
go be
integrate
checking
their
this.
stage right now. They're all
big one.
disintegrated.
It's a
Royal
big
Rife,
one.
keeping me alive. All right,
Shout
speaking.
out to Rife.
Thank you, Rife. So speaking of population control, Andreas, your freedom from allopathic medicine is being delivered tomorrow. Yes, dude, Matthew Rife. Thank you very much. So this is exciting. The Royal Rife machine. This is the future. We're going to be working on actually healing people with energy waves. That's pretty exciting. Make sure you guys go to the Royal Rife Institute.
Rifing it up, my doggies.
What's his website again? Hold on. I'm sorry.
No
I think
idea.
Isn't it
dog.
real?
Real Rife.
Real Rife? I can't remember the domain though.
If you text it again, I'll make sure I put the right thing up. I'm sorry. I was trying to find it, and since I switched my laptops while I'm out here in California.
No worries,
But
dog,
guys,
no
make sure
worries.
you guys check out Rife Technologies. He's also got a
Real
YouTube
Rife
channel,
Technology.
Real Rife Technologies. Real Rife Technology, that is. Real Rife Technology. Boom. Yeah, guys, go to Real Rife Technology, not just because it's a really pretty website and that you can buy Rife machines, which is pretty awesome. You should buy some Rife machines.
Explain
also-
what that is, dog. Explain what a Rife machine is.
Well, so part of the thing I was gonna say is, if you wanted to find out, you can check out the resource center on the website, because it'll tell you all about Dr. Royal Rife's notes. This idea that you can use EMF to heal. Let me see if I can pull this up, and you can do a lot of amazing things with electromagnetic energy, safer than a lot of other medicines, or things that they're using in a radioimmunotherapy now uses Rife technology, essentially the same ideas. And you can check out these modern scientific papers talking about electromagnetic fields for breast cancer, right? And this is from the Anti-Cancer Research Association. So these are all mainstream papers that are using that technology. So it's pretty awesome.
Cool.
But yeah, definitely make sure you guys go to Rife Technology, realrifetechnology.com.
Right on.
Canada extends mandatory COVID testing for travelers from China until April 5th. What's this all about? What do you think? Is it back? I mean, this is back and forth. I go outside. There's like 3 people wearing a mask.
Yeah, I can always tell what's in the news by how many masks I see when I go out. Like a couple weeks ago, suddenly everyone around me was wearing one. I'm like, oh, I guess there's a new variant or something.
COVID's back.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Oh no, I mean, so let's see. Bill Gates, COVID. I just saw this the other day. What Bill Gates thinks about COVID conspiracy theories. Bill Gates has revealed that he flags COVID misinformation to technology firms, but says he believes that the traditional media is helping magnify conspiracy theories about his involvement in the global vaccine rollout. Gee, yeah. Oh well. The Microsoft founder suggests that artificial intelligence, the massive technological leaps that have been made in the recent years, have led to the unintended consequences of increasing the ability for misinformation to be convincingly created and spread. However, the philanthropist remains optimistic about new technology in the new age. I don't see how it's fair for him to say that they're connecting dots. I mean, so he's involved with these companies, right? Isn't that the case? He's built the Event 201. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so financed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? So, I mean, what's the conspiracy theory here? Or where's the theory part? We're just listing the fact that he's a financier and he talks about this stuff all the time. I'm confused. Where's the conspiracy theory?
Where's the theory part in it, right? It's true.
Yeah. I've never been involved in any microchip type thing. Okay. Well, then what is like patent 2020-0606? Right.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's the Microsoft patent
maybe I
for
do.
a cryptocurrency system that uses the blood activity to reward you with cryptocurrency
Yes.
for doing what you're supposed to do, right? 666.
That bullish.
Right.
So you get a demerit when you're in the Amazon work line, and you have to. The only way you can continue working is if you verbally say the word productivity.
Yeah, nice. But if they can tell like that you went to the rally, or you went running today, or you watched the right show, or you ate the right food, or you listened to the right thing. I mean, they'll be able to financially reward you. So, I mean, this is 2018 patent to the United States, 2019 worldwide. So, I mean, that's an aggressive goal.
Shit's wild. You were talking about Bill Gates, and I thought of Dr. Connors. I'm just
nice.
Is that from?
I think we mentioned Dr. Connors last. Did we mention Dr. Connors last week or the week before? I think
from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is definitely. It seems like that. But I don't think you think Bill Gates is naive and a good guy accidentally messing up, not like intentionally doing evil. That's your conspiracy theory, eh? It's an accident.
No, I think that guy's an ass.
I think they're all secretly lizards.
I don't know how secret it is. I mean,
like, I think everyone knows what I mean when I say lizards, but like,
I like to type. Oh,
yeah, literal.
Wow.
What you do?
That was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. Oh man. Do I like stop the stream? Do I like fix it? What do you even
can
do
edit it later?
Wow.
I hope so. I don't know.
That's kind of Google's
probably...
fault, and you're on a Google platform right now, so they can.
God, dude, thanks a lot, Google. That was DuckDuckGo, and they're gonna blame me for the rest of my life. I don't know. I hate that. Always keep your moderate on. That was my own fault. I was trying to find the picture of Bill Gates where he's like throwing the disc record, just like, and it was actually, I don't know which is worse, really. Like, to be honest,
Virgin Eyes.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't feel good about that. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. I'll just ignore it till later and see how
What happened?
That usually works, right?
I just typed in Bill Gates sexy, and don't do that ever again, basically.
Oh, some stuff came up?
Yeah, you missed it. Look at you.
Up, man. Some stuff came up.
Car crashes into Canada Mall.
On my end.
Have you seen the car crashing in the Canadian Mall?
Well, for sure, man.
I mean, it's not as interesting as what you just saw, but I mean, I thought it was pretty funny. So, dude in Toronto crashes through the mall, drove into the mall. How based is it? How horrible?
It's very Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Atta girl, Stephanie. There you go. That's a reference for you.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Mission from God.
Exactly.
And the suspects have not been found. It was like a shopping spree. I mean, it's brilliant, really. I don't know. It's horrible. Terrible. I feel bad. But
it looks like he had fun.
It does.
How do they not find the person after that, right? Like, so is this...
He probably totally expected to get caught, and he's probably like, how the haven't they caught me yet?
God, this is so nuts. It makes me wonder a lot about the legal system, because what's going on? Like, what are police able to do? What are they not able to do? I mean, where does this leave the rest of us? If you can if someone can do this, right? Like, what? The whole system's collapsing, as far as I can tell.
It's almost
malls
like
are dying.
Not that I'm against it. I mean, I want to be in a world that this is possible, but it's just like, on one hand, we're told that they have this amazing infrastructure. They have cameras everywhere. They can see all. They know what's going on. And on the other hand, somebody does something like this, and where's their THX 1138 thing? I mean, is it just there's too much else going on? It's not worth stopping them. What?
Well, it's of course there is that, but also it's like it's part of the calculation of loss. Like they're factoring in that there's going to be this sort of thing that happens, and like big deal, it's pocket change for them. Whatever damage is done, like they don't care. Malls are a dead thing anyways.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, who cares about malls? So, they're from the 90s.
Like, what are they going to get? They're going to spend resources finding someone who drove through a mall and like stole things from somewhere that like is already going out of business. It doesn't change much. So they're whatever violence is escalating will be used to justify like future like police state, basically. But for now, it's the Wild West again. So
it does feel like abandoning the Midwest. Yeah, go ahead.
They can be very easily converted into public housing. But that's
like the prison housing that they have. Have you seen that? Like,
no,
was it Danish prison converted to apartments? I think is the one I saw. Maximum security well-being comes first. No, that's not it. Prison converted to apartments. Scandinavia. For the Sweden, maybe Nordic, something like that. They had these buildings, right? And then they decided, well, they could just move. They're so nice that they can just move people in. And so they started moving in homes, and they have entire communities in some of these prisons that have been converted into apartment buildings in Scandinavia.
How would you feel about living in one of those?
Right? That's the thing.
I feel like there'd be a lot of negative energy from...
I think in Scandinavia, prisoners are humanized a lot more. So it's like, oh, they're just people, I don't know. They probably have to do a lot more violent crimes to actually go to prison, I feel like.
I think also the refugees, they're moving in huge communities of refugees. And they're like, okay, well, there's like 30,000 people. Where do we put them? Well, this building can hold 30,000 people. Problem solved. And I think that was a functional solution in the 70s and the 80s in Denmark and Scandinavia. And they started running out of ideas more and more into the 21st century. But I mean, God, it was cramped quarters too. So it seems kind of insane. And also a way to assimilate lots of people that have never lived like this before. So you bring them to the West and you put them through kind of a rigid, safe, but Scandinavian prisons, yeah, like everyone says, seem to be supposedly so much nicer, right? I think we just saw that Danish prison, luxury, maximum security, well-being comes first. You're supposed to garden. It looks like it's built by Bauhaus architects. I mean, yeah. Like, what do I got to do to go to that prison? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the thing. I don't know.
It looks like they're actively trying to cure the soul. I like the approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's people in America who go to jail on purpose so they can get free housing. And so, like, if you have this sort of setup, there's going to for sure be a subset that are just going to be like, well, I'm going to commit some crime so I can go hang out in this place that's literally better than whatever I can afford. So it depends. I mean, depends on the system, basically. If they can pull it off, but it might be a price worth paying for,
That makes it sound like we have a really shitty system to begin with.
Library.
It just makes me think of It makes me think of Epstein. So we do have these prisons in the United States, exactly. And so we have to decide who gets to use them. It's not just Epstein, obviously. So there are some seriously wealthy white collar prisons.
Other financiers.
I don't know if you've ever seen the Servant of the People show with Zelensky. Show that he made to get elected president, but in the show at one point he gets arrested, and his guy, I forget, is like the person who's secretly above him, who's his advisor, who's working for the mafia. They get arrested and they go, I don't know if I can find the prison scene, but yeah, basically they open a door. It looks like this Russian prison, it looks like this. except it's like gray and darker and wet and everything. And you pull a book, and then it's this huge apartment on the other side of the wall. And then there's just like TVs and wine and cookies and everything like that. And so you have to live quietly. You've got a garden, you've got everything, but it's just in order that everyone thinks that you're in prison. So this is the front of your prison, which also makes you safe because people are like, he's in prison. So you don't want to go to the prison because it's all messed up. And then beyond that, he's safe for the next few years, like a retirement plan for people that have gotten too publicly hot.
It's like an old folks' home for politicians.
For gangsters. For middlemen workers. That was the Skeksis, man. I don't know. So let's see. Davos, Coca-Cola. So over dinner, Davos, the CEOs of Novartis, Coca-Cola, and Grab shared what's worrying them. On the season 4 premiere of Fortune Leadership Next podcast, co-hosts Alan Murray and Ellen McGirt invited you to the CEO's dinner Fortune hosted at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Guests last month included Novanta CEO Viscount Naresh Simhan and Coca-Cola Company CEO James Quincy and Grab CEO Anthony Tant. I mean, so it seems like nothing, but at the end of the day, it isn't. Coca-Cola runs and controls all the water in South America. I'm gonna mute I know Vincent's laptop, man. I can hear your fan. But Coca-Cola controls all the water in South America, and there's been not all of it, but a lot of it, and they control like OXXO, petroleum company. They do this in Southeast Asia as well. China has been working against Coca-Cola. Then PepsiCo came out of nowhere with the Soviet Union LEAD program in 1989, and they've controlled pirate waters between Somalia. So Coca-Cola has really positioned themselves to be the post-state power. It's kind of weird to say, but if you think about it, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, these companies have nuclear tankers, machine guns, private military, everything they need to survive piracy. Right in the open seas, and this is the major power structure that's emerging. And they're talking about their worries. Mainly, their worries have to do with supply chain disruption, aka pirates controlling of their routes and courses, and also, the idea of like worldwide shutdown. What's coming from a worldwide shutdown, and the idea that there's probably going to be some sort of a major disruption that happens just to the idea of even having products enough that can support 8 billion, 9 billion people in the next year or two.
I think that's a very valid concern. Even if our sentiment in the U.S., even if it's not that bad, even if we're wrong about having positive sentiment, it doesn't control what's going on the world stage. And I think there's a lot to be afraid of on the world stage right now. It's like a lot of those pressures that you get from the outside, they become undeniable after a while. And I think, we've already had threats to global stabilization with Ukraine, but it doesn't seem like our worries are just going to dissolve overnight. Like, even the best thing would be for a resolution there to happen, and then maybe we could talk about having stability coming, but it could get a lot worse before it gets better, from what I can see in the world anyway.
I agree with that, Kurt, for sure, brother.
It's funny because it's their MO and they've done it before, right? So when they weren't able to get South American supplies, they weren't able to bring Coca-Cola to Germany and Europe, and they were able instead to have Fanta, right? Because they're able to make Fanta.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like this is exactly what Coca-Cola is positioning itself to do. Was it Coca-Cola Black Tea? They own all of these companies in Arabia and Japan around the world, so they can control products in general. And again, if you're in a place where you can't get water anyplace else, and you have to take a shower, or you have to wash your kids, or you have to feed your family, and you pick up a 5-gallon or 20-gallon or whatever a drum of water, a barrel of water like oil. This is something that's been positioned by Bilderberg. They talked about how oil was going to hit parity with water, and then water would hit parity with oil. Right. And we're at that point. At a certain point, oil went to negative, and now water's up to this crazy value. And we've seen it positioned this way in South Africa. Water crisis. Seemed like crazy thing to me. Are you familiar with this? Like, even in the major cities, they're having a water crisis for several years, and it's now. I think in general they've kind of controlled the major cities, but across Africa, there's droughts, and there's still issues with water where there shouldn't be, because South Africa has all of this water, huge amounts of water, but the infrastructure has been disrupted. And yeah, power crisis triggers water cuts in South Africa. Actually, I need to study the story more. I forget who it is who's from South Africa who's been talking on our comment section. But if you're there, if you know what this story is about, because as I recall, South Africa was in the process of becoming independent, having its own hydraulic water system. So it was going to have its own water and power. And then something happened which led to the destruction of this. And this is actually like 10 years ago that it started. And now we're at this major point where South Africa is going to be stuck on China and on Arabia for oil and for water.
Water futures, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Buy a
water
dip.
world. We're getting into water world over here. Bust out Kevin
Right.
Costner.
It seems weird though, because water is ceramic filter. It seems so easy to filter water. Why is it that we're living in a world where there's so much water and we're unable to have access to it?
And
It's like the hyper control mechanism.
I wonder how much frozen water they have stashed in Antarctica that they aren't letting us check out there.
The London-sized iceberg, that was something that happened the other day. There's a natural behavior. Nobody worry about it. This giant iceberg the size of London, that happened. 600 square miles. I don't know, but this was just started happening about a week ago and finished, I think, earlier today.
Like, there's a good amount of water that could keep people, drinking for a little while there, eh?
Yeah, there's a lot of water, but the thing is, this water will be at some point controlled by. This is South America or somewhere around Antarctica. It'll be able to be controlled if it floats out. Otherwise, it'll be dissipated into the sea. But usually, if that happens, you have freshwater currents that are carrying it to Alaska or something. So you do have cold water exchange because of it. So it's probably very useful. But I mean, we talked about this already, but I'm going to bring it up again because I still think it's interesting.
Do it.
The Mexico chemtrails. You heard this story?
Yeah, you were talking about it last night.
So I've been looking into it, and it's pretty interesting. Everything about this is true. The Mexican government tried to ban chemtrails, and then this morning there's been pictures of chemtrails all across California again. So there's new moving towards chemtrails here. Meanwhile, in Mexico, they're completely stopping it. And I forget what website I saw that, but
moving them to Cali.
Where was that thing? Banning all chemtrails in the country. I think.
Was it on The Verge?
California.
Might have been the link here announced. Is it this one? Yeah. So full on experimentation for geoengineering and solar will not be allowed in Mexico except for by Semernaut and Conaxit, which was let's find out the companies. This is the thing. This is the National Council for Science and Technology, an entity in charge of promotion of the scientific and technological activities. So they have a lot of these in South America. I guess we have them in every country, but these are conglomerate allegiances that are designed to promote new businesses. But these are the kinds of businesses they build, the businesses which are invested in by angel capital, like from Microsoft or anywhere else. And then the state. So they probably have like a startup, Mexico, and it has 62 researchers. Okay. So that's kind of cool. So the state actually has its own researchers. That's a pretty good idea. And they don't want geoengineering happening, so they're going to be in control of it. So if it happens, it's going to be done by the state of Mexico itself, basically.
Okay.
Kind of cool. But then they said, like LA chemtrails. Let me see. News. False claim chemtrails in Harper are used to manipulate the weather, right? So all of a sudden these articles started coming out, right? Who's writing this article for the USA Times? Who's reading this article? Like, where are they hearing it? Like, it's weird to me how many articles exist about the stuff, because I just wonder who's reading this article. But then all of a sudden Mexico makes it illegal. So pretty crazy. I don't know. No thoughts on chemtrails? I feel like Kurt, you gotta be thinking about it.
Sorry, there's a guy talking smack in the comments, so just getting a little distracted here.
No, like with the term chemtrails, I don't know if YouTube will be funky just about the term, because they're like, when you research anything like that, they're like, oh, watch out, this is conspiracy theory. So like a lot of times you can say a contrail. The conspiracy is that chemicals are in the contrails, and then they get into the atmosphere, and of course that's disagreed upon by mainstream scientists. So as long as we don't get in trouble for that. Do we have to improvise until Andreas comes back?
Oh, where'd he go?
Oh, that's weird. I'm sorry.
People have been talking about chemtrails for like 10 years plus, and the government was denying it back then, and now. Well, now it feels like people are just catching up to like. It's like we're just having people who are just rereading the same thing that everyone knew 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's like, oh my God, look, they're putting chemtrails everywhere. It's like, we know.
I think that's how all of this stuff goes.
We were looking at the ergot poisoning of, I believe, a French town. I think it was in the 60s. We would have to look it up, but there's a conspiracy theory that that it was LSD and it was done by the CIA. Theoretically, with the drugs that are super, super concentrated, like LSD, theoretically, yes, you could very easily spread them. Factually, you could spread them into the atmosphere if you wanted to. That's not at all a conspiracy theory. It's just like you can factually do it through water vapor.
I go away for 5 seconds and Stephanie's lights just get like...
It died.
Sounds like a movie, like...
Dude, I got spooky in here.
That was spooky, man. I was like, whoa, what happened?
Well, Kurt,
I didn't interrupt.
That's the problem with the term conspiracy theory, man. Like, it's just done so much damage after its creation. It's just creates so much confusion and like misperceptions and prejudice and all this nonsense. So it just kind of stems into what you're getting into.
Plus, it's a hypothesis. It's not even a theory. So, like,
exactly. Like, just
there's a conspiracy theory that the CIA invented the term conspiracy theory. Man,
well, that's what it is, man. It's a conspiracy, man.
Well, there's the all right. We watched the movie. Me and Jordan. We watched JFK together. Great movie. Woo! And it's there's the lone gunman theory, but we all know it's bullshit now. There's like much evidence to say the lone gunman theory is absolute and utter just shit. You know, like from the bullets you can rewatch just the film itself of JFK.
Exactly. Yeah,
this is unto him, and it's like, oh, he actually did get shot before he got the terminal one.
It would have been really funny. I feel like Oliver Stone should have had Woody Harrelson play like his security guard. It would have been like, to me, that would have been a really funny layer of comedy. I'd like to have the son of the assassin play the.
What's Woody Harrelson's dad's name though? What assassin? Because I know a lot of the names of the different alleged assassins and whatnot, but
Charles Harrelson.
Charles. Okay, never heard of that one.
Yeah, so Charles Harrelson. Actually, at one point, he kind of admits it on 60 Minutes, Woody Harrelson sitting there, and he talks a bit about it, JFK.
Let me see here. It's definitely not in this book that I've just been finishing up.
JFK, 3 Tramps, Charles Harrelson right there.
Charles Harrelson.
Yeah, so... he's supposed to be one of the 3 tramps, along with George Bush Sr.
Oh, he was one of the. Okay, he was one of the tramps. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
There's
that makes sense. Huh?
Right. Yeah. There's some stuff. Sorry, you were talking about the JFK movie in general. Yeah.
Great movie. And the more I tried to fact check the information that was in the movie, the more it turned out it checked out. You know what I mean? It's even if there's some minor details that you can go into, like, yeah, maybe that didn't happen in that way. There's the very important parts of the movie were factually correct. Like the mayor of the town that the parade went through, where JFK got shot, he was the brother of a former CIA. Was he the head of CIA, or he was a
Dulles,
former head of CIA? Which
or Cabot. Sorry, yeah, Cabot.
Yeah, once you start to line up so many so-called coincidences, it just looks like you feel like a moron for believing all these coincidences at once. Like I think most people just haven't even heard of them because it's been stamped out of public consciousness for so long, and now it's starting to come back a little bit. So, in that movie, it was in 1991, and like people have seen it, but it was. I felt like it should have been like standard viewing. I never even heard of the movie throughout my public education at any point.
And I mean, Oliver Stone just annoys me sometimes because I just feel like he isn't telling as much of the story as he needs to. Like he's telling important stuff, I guess, but it's like he knows so much more than that. Oliver Stone is one of those guys that is able to keep a straight face, and I am jealous of that, but I don't get it. Like I don't know how he does it.
Like the Nixon movie, the Nixon movie is a whole lot of not much of anything. Like it's not bad of a movie, but I mean it's definitely not like JFK where it kind of investigates and it digs
and a September 11th movie. I mean, just everything he does, really. It's like how much he's hiding in front of our eyes. You've seen, of course, Back to the Future predicts 9/11. The most important thing. I think the most important thing to watch.
I think I've seen that, yeah.
This is super key. And just in case, have you seen this, Kurt?
What is it?
Back to the Future predicts 9/11. So this is a video about how 9/11 was predicted by If you notice here in Twin Pines Mall, you can already kind of get where we're going here. There's the Twin Pines, and it says 9/11 upside down right there, right 116. And when you hit the tree, the Twin Pines becomes the Lone Pine Mall, right? And so there's a number of other interesting things about 9/11. For instance, the scene where where is the scene? Right here. This is the most realistic scene. The terrorists attack the Twin Pines Mall, and this is the most realistic scene in any portrayal of the Twin Towers. And you look at the Statue of Liberty lamp down there, and the TV is tracking, and there's a man upside down, right? So when he's standing upside down, you can see, you're supposed to look at this upside down, and you can see the towers collapsing. So there's a number of little things like that, including you'll find out in 15 years, 9 over here, 11. It's the all-seeing eye when they're buying, the Save the Clock Tower, all the stuff like that.
I was never into these movies, so that's interesting, man. Okay.
And there's the October 21st, 2015. You'll find out in 30 years what happens in 2015. He makes the movie Man on a Wire, where the guy is dressed like Marty McFly, and he's walking across the Twin Towers on a wire.
That movie wasn't too bad.
Yeah, but again, with these movies aren't about what they say they're about.
I know, man. Absolutely, yeah.
That's the thing. And so, anyway, I was giving that background for Kurt because I think you guys could watch this whole thing and get a lot more out of it if you haven't seen it. And Kurt, I definitely say you should watch this. But the reason I bring it up isn't because of that. It's because of the other episode. Back to the Future predicts John F. Kennedy's assassination. So Epophinia Production did this one. And it's really interesting when you realize that the town square is actually the exact same design as the courthouse amalgamation from Hill Valley. The Texas shooting and Hill Valley are a triangle shot. He has to get to the certain point. Lightning strikes at the edge of the triangle in the same location that would have struck. Okay, also the storefront, you've got all these things from the future, including a bust of JFK. It's the only one where it's sliced like a bookend, so it's right at the spot where his head was shot.
His head was blown off, yeah.
Right. There's previous presidents portrayed, but that's the only one that's actually like sliced, And the other thing, November 22nd is when the film was released. So the anniversary of the assassination of JFK. So the idea that JFK's death is a major point in history is obvious, but why, right? And if you've seen that show, 9/23/63, 9/22/63, is that right? 11/22/63. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, man.
You've seen the show. It's all about this idea that, like, what if Kennedy didn't die? And spoiler alert,
last week,
the world. Have you guys? I don't want to like ruin it for you, but basically, the Soviet Union. Let's see, like a Soviet submarine Valentine. If I can avoid ruining it with something else, okay. You almost owe everything to this man, and there's a lot of people like him. There was a point when a submarine in 1962 underwater couldn't get in touch with the Russians, and the Americans were above it, and they almost pulled the nuke. But this dude, Comrade Valentine, decided to stop it from happening. And there's been a few examples of this where like we've almost pushed the nuke, right? These dudes on amphetamines, 36-hour shifts in these submarines or something. Sure. It seems so close to come every time along the way. But the idea that but if there was going to be an end of the world, it could have happened in the 60s. We've got the H.G. Wells prediction of World War III with the nuclear crisis. And the argument is that World War III nuclear holocaust was averted by the CIA taking over the presidency and removing JFK. That is kind of what I think George W. Bush wanted, and George Bush Sr. wants people to believe about JFK. That he had to die. And also Stephen King essentially has put this in this movie, that the world would be far worse because we would have gone into a more devastating Cold War.
So he was sacrificed.
I mean, we had a Catholic president. It was a liberal economy. Our interactions were changing. We started to deviate from the Federal Reserve. Kennedy was producing silverback dollars, right? JFK silverback dollar. I can find a picture of the.
He really seems like a stand up guy.
The red meant that this was actually backed by metal currency. And so, of course, that was about the point when they really decided they were going to stop JFK. It seems like.
Yeah, this is our money. Yeah.
I mean, right? Because it's the zeitgeist. The money is the thing that we pretend is real. And if there actually was real money, you talked about this before, Kurt, that the Russians are using real money. And it's based
closer
on
to
real
it,
things.
anyways.
I mean, if it's based on gold, that's something, right?
Yeah. Relative, their gold is a set price right now with their exchange, and it's pretty close to having some sort of standard. Yeah, but yeah, I've had the thought before that JFK was purely killed because of the central banking mafia, but I've had the thought. I'm not saying that's true.
It's an amalgamation of so many reasons carried out by so many different groups and individuals. So I mean,
I think
what were you about to say, Stephanie?
Oh no, I was just saying, isn't that a common theory? Like I've heard that before too.
Yeah. Well, he also liked minorities, and I think America was just really racist.
I'm a big fan of the Bay of Pigs.
Cuba and Russia was big factor.
Yeah. I think Bay of Pigs is the answer, Cuba. So if you remember that Cuba, before it was a communist country, is where the Bush family and a lot of these wealthy guys had plantations, then it was a place where, Bernie, what's up, bro? Welcome to Canada. How you doing?
Hello.
We're talking about JFK. Actually, this is very Canadian because it gets right back to Justin Trudeau. But we're talking about Canada, Cuba.
He still defines my country. Boo. Happy Groundhog Day, y'all.
Yeah. He's trying to pull it together. If you think about it, though, I mean, the wealthy families that controlled these plantations and essentially owned people, their whole world was taken from them. They had an offshore account in Cuba, and so they were very upset. And these families were in the CIA, George Bush Sr., et cetera, and they're the ones who ended up in power after JFK died. So it seems like the most logical progression. And there were papers recently that were JFK, George Bush declassified. Did that come out? I thought it did. Biggest revelations, right? Trump was trying to get these papers out, and then 2,800 papers previously declassified. And they talk about how they were spying on everybody. There's no way that they didn't know everybody who was near Kennedy. I mean, everybody. They had recordings of everything, and they were definitely paying attention, and they had dossiers on everybody. So that anyone could have met by accident is impossible, is the answer. It had to have been that it was either being monitored to happen and let happen, or it was strategically planned to happen. Right. So math in question, I mean, this picture though, right? I feel like it says it. I don't know. I feel like that's the plan. You got to a certain point where the OSS and the Banana Republic families took over. And these are the same families from the Knights of the Golden Circle. They're families that go back and they're Merovingian. I mean, but yeah, the Bay of Pigs. I think that was the end of that was really what led to JFK's.
Yeah,
that got a lot of people pissed off.
The same year JFK died was the exact year that I want to get my statement right here. Well, Congress ended any sort of silver-backed currency and the legality of it. So it officially went out of circulation in 1964. So, yeah, just an interesting tidbit there.
So this is kind of a weird conspiracy about this. Have you heard about the Cuban gold?
No.
So the idea that the Confederates had gold, that the Bermuda gold, the Caribbean gold, even Caribbean gold, that the Barber princes, there's lots and lots of gold. When I was in Bermuda, there's just guys from Bermuda that go around looking on the beach for lost galleons, right? That have just been left there for centuries because they're just on the beaches or just everywhere in the mountains and the hills. There's gold in these hills, but in general, there were huge amounts of gold that were held by pirates or by trading captains who had fiefdoms, right? These Barbary princes. And with a fiefdom, I'm so scared. I'm putting on strict search from the rest. I'm so scared. God, and it even looks worse.
We're Dom anywhere near there. You know.
I know. I was so scared. I put fiefdom. I'm like, this is not even
fiefdom fetish.
Ecclesiastical fief. There we go. That's the word to use, guys. We're saying ecclesiastical fief. This is worth it. We're tiptoeing around the internet, and it's hard because it's actually it's nice. Because so much of the internet is not what we want to see. It makes the few things we want to see really stick out. So imagine you've got a fiefdom and you've got lots of gold, and then the Barber Wars start, right? And the Barber Wars happen after chopping down the cherry tree, and they start taking everybody's gold. So then you've got your major collection of gold. And by the 19th century, if your family's in the Bay of Pigs, they've got the gold from maybe 20 or 30 other pirates that have collected gold since Sir Francis Drake for the last 200 years. So the crazy amounts of gold you have, then imagine you can take that gold and you can just buy into any state, right? Because the way a gold reserve works is, like you just said, Kurt, if you have a certain amount of gold, they have to give you that many dollars or rupees or ruples or whatever. So rubles. So you end up with an economy that's controlled instantly by these fiefdom princes. And those were the Bush family and the friends of the lake, right? So there's supposed to be lots of gold in Cuba that they were trying to steal. And then that's one of the ways that Cuba is able to manage to survive to this day, because Cuba has these reserves. I don't know if I can find anything on it, though. Hold on. 3 Cuban gold reserves. I don't know. There is a lot of gold in South America, though. And then Cuba also, for a long time, was supporting back and forth the Bolivarian states and back. Well, okay. Bush, Bay of Pigs, Kennedy, Back to the Future. Go back here. Problem with women. Okay, so this is kind of funny. A blind spot when it comes to the lives of women and girls. The organization really claims to represent the world. It should embrace women from low-income countries. 2,700 leaders from 130, including the 52 heads of state, attended. Lots of dudes and a lot of wealthy women, but not a lot of work put into women in the community. More than 3/4 of the attendees were men. I mean, they're calling it gendercide, because it's a problem and it's invisible. So
that's a pretty severe claim.
Yes.
I wonder though, because it's like, this is something that's come up over and over again in my life is, like they're saying women aren't engineers enough, which is not exactly true. There are lots of mathematicians that I've met, for instance, and a lot of computer scientists that are women, but they've made the point. They said, oh, well, we need to make sure there are more women. And because of that, they're hiring people based on gender. So you look at like game companies and they go woke and everything. And it's because they're hiring people that are less qualified just because they're women.
Yeah, right? And I think that makes the problem even worse, because then you have these people, these men working for these companies who are actually there because of their merit, and then these women being brought in simply because, I don't want to say simply because, but maybe they're not as qualified. They're brought in because they tick a box, and maybe they're unaware of it, or maybe they deep down are aware of it, and their attitude in the workplace is defensive. It's just, it creates, I think, a really tense, really kind of a, I don't know, not ideal environment for people.
What do you think about taking, like, so they've taken gender off of resumes and circumstances, so you're not supposed to look, I mean, in a circumstance like that, where people are measured completely without any at all inclination towards looking at what they look like, will that help, or will that lead to even more of a accidental profiling of a certain kind of person?
I don't think it will help, this gender, these gender numbers, this equity, this push for equity. Like, I think it's going to highlight that it's not an even gender balance of people who are interested in this type of thing. And I don't see why that should be an issue.
So I don't think a great measure of a person is their profession. So like, I don't think that's a great way to equal things out between men and women, because like, that's not a good measure of a person, just what you do for money. Yeah. Unless,
you found a way to make a living through something that is more closely linked to your passions, or something that allows you to also contribute something to society more than just, being a cog in a wheel. I hate to use that expression because it's cliche, but
I think that's all engineers do, though. They're just really
I think just talking about engineering, it's a little bit different than
ChatGPT, engineers.
I feel like with some of these careers, it's like what we're saying to do for women. It's almost like saying, all right, men need to pick up their fair share and like start giving birth. It's like, how if women, let's say theoretically, women naturally don't have as much of a natural proclivity to do something like engineering or coding or whatever, other useless things. Like why would trying to force them to want it or try to feel like they have that specialty be any sort of a good or positive thing? I don't think it flies, personally.
I mean, it's crazy when I think about it, because it's like there are when people talk about women, like I think of Christy Marks, for instance, who made Gem and the Holograms and worked for Mattel and did a lot of important stuff. There's a lot of great women that are involved in the creative process and have been involved in the creative process since the beginning of any of these shows or any of this creation, and also with sciences. And it's kind of nice because OpenAI is in the process of removing these repetitious jobs. They're going to get rid of these things because AI will basically make basic programming extinct. So all that will be left will be creative. And so it will be important to be creative for men or women. Really, I think that's going to be the only thing that matters, is having new philosophical approaches, right?
Exactly. We shouldn't turn women into men, because men are going to be obsolete anyways.
Men and women, it seems like, are maybe becoming obsolete. Maybe we need to grow into something else.
All right, they permit all life to exist. It's they're if we're going to keep the party going, we need women. That's the
for now.
I don't like the idea of people in test tubes. I think that's horrible. I think
I mean, there's a lot of people. I've met people born in test tubes. I've had friends who were test tube babies. I think, and I don't mean that like weird or sci-fi either. Like, that is a thing that happens. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't exist without it. So,
you can comment on that more if you want to. Like, my instinct says my thought process would be Like, is that person miss a holy connection with their mother, like when they were in the womb? How did that? I think these things can affect a person for their life. You know, if an infant is, let's say, traumatized, you know, that changes the course of that person's entire lifetime.
Harvard University, mitochondrial transfer, the making of 3-parent babies. Yes. The question, where do babies come from? It used to be a simple answer. A man and a woman had sex. Male sperm fertilized the female egg, and 9 months later, a baby is born. But in today's world, medical advances have complicated this answer. For example, a new technique called mitochondrial transfer has recently emerged to prevent the transmission of a certain class of genetic disorders. This technique is highly controversial as it combines DNA from 3 individuals to generate a so-called 3rd-parent baby. Why would you do this? Well, because they just said, let's say somebody's got a gene that is likely to emerge, or in fact guaranteed, because we now have preventative medical procedures like DNA sequencing that will tell you your promoter sequences opening and closing and the likelihood of you to a probability of 90-some-odd-9%. So you could then say, okay, well, I'd like to try to gene make adenoviral for myself, but what about my kid? And here's the answer. You just remove that gene sequence, but what do? Do you leave it empty, or do you replace it with somebody else? And here's what you do. You replace it with somebody else. And the guarantee there that it's like 99 or 98% likely that you won't have that gene in the next thing is then even further amplified because of Gattaca. You're going to select the egg that's ensured to not have that gene sequence and have that be produced. Now, you can say this is horrible, that this is inhuman or whatever. But again, this is going to produce lives, which are going to be people, which I will have to love because they are alive. They are people and I will love them, you know? And then on top of that, they will probably be healthier for it. And that'll be something to consider, right? This is the Gattaca question. If it doesn't matter if you don't like trans reading to kids, they might be the future of kids in general. This might be the future of how everything works. Humans might not breed the way we used to. Silkworms don't, right? Have you seen a silkworm breed ever? Let me tell you how it works. Humans get a bowl and they breed them. They cannot live on their own. They cannot do anything on their own. Thousands of years, theoretically, of just being treated like pets, right? So
I think we're terrible at innovation, to be honest. Like, we're very bad at foreseeing unintended consequences when it comes to innovation, and I think there's endless examples of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, that's just my negativity. I'm sorry.
It's so true, though. Like I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, maybe with a very well-known designer who is not typically in the realm of these types of discussions, and certainly wouldn't be in line with a lot of this type of stuff, but was talking about how back in the 90s, he'd be got these meetings and everyone is talking about, wouldn't it be great if, you know, you went to a hotel and the minibar was stocked with all of your favorite snacks, and it just intuitively, everything around you intuitively knew what you liked, what you preferred. And it just seemed like this utopia, and how everyone was on board with that. And he was just looking back on that now saying, like, we didn't foresee any of the issues with like privacy or tracking or anything like that are, you know, turning our world quite dystopian now. Back in the 90s, it just seemed like this fantastic dream. And I think that's kind of how we view all innovation. And that was kind of his point, is that innovation doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good. Like, we don't always have to be just focused on innovation.
Yeah, like cigarettes are an innovation. Are they good for you?
I think some people have to be focused on innovation the same way that some animals have to be nocturnal. Like there has to be a part of civilization
for us, though. Yeah,
there's there's Amish people, and they're going to make sure before they decide to join in with this progress, the progress has to be tested for a long time. And a lot of that but that's interesting how the human race really absorbs information so quickly, because it's even genetic information, right? We've got all sorts of gut fauna, and we're at a point where we're able to survive. And at one point that wasn't true. A lot of people interacted with each other and they would just die. So we are at a point where we're able to function because of this. And the next step is memetics, just literal memetics, where we're learning how to speak each other's languages or think the same way as each other. Someone goes to a school, they learn a artificial intelligence. That's what I think school really is. Education is a new way of thinking. It's an artificial kind of thinking. It's an artificial intelligence that's installed. And we're going to see more of that. There's going to be different kinds of artificial intelligences installed on people in faster ways, whether we think of it as this technology that's new and coming, or just the fact that people are talking to their children, right? And also, right, because we talked about this earlier, but mammoths and the dodo bird, the clones are coming. This is, we think 2023, 2024 tops at this point is the first mammoth clone. And it's probably this summer is really, I mean, they could have done it years ago. They probably have, but we're going to officially hear about it this year or next year. And probably next year after it's happened and it's been successful. That's kind of what I'm imagining, is it's happening over the summer and then you'll hear about
Jurassic Park is happening. Yeah.
So are these going to be kept in captivity? Like,
no,
what's the plan?
So Ted Turner owns land. The idea is that Bill Gates' farmland, Ted Turner's largest wild preserves, that these Captain Planets, they'll be placed in charge of these mastodon migratory patterns. And there are major sections. How many houses? What do you call it? Houses unlived United States. What is it? Like 100 per person. There are 17 million vacant homes in America. It's not going to be for homeless humans. Like these are biodegradable, quickly fallen. This is mastodon grazing territory, right? The future is going to be just allowing mastodons to trample this area, going up and down, which is kind of, it sounds crazy, but that's something that they love to talk about. And there's a movie, what's it called? Ted Rex, Theodore Rex with Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh,
most expensive made for video movie up to this time. Whoopi Goldberg accidentally signed into it, and she's like, "What? No, I don't want to be in this movie." And they're like, "You already signed the contract." And the whole movie, you can see her just like painfully, just like,
"Why am I in this movie?"
I signed that paper, and they were gonna fine me as much money as they were gonna pay me. I gotta be in it now. Damn! And it was just released for video, and no parent saw it. They just bought it for their kids, and every kid I know saw it and doesn't remember it, but if you show it to them, they're like, "Oh my god, now I remember. I blacked this out because it was horrifying."
Oh, interesting.
But they, basically you've got this future cop movie, and in the old days you'd have a black cop and a white cop, and they'd be like, "I don't like your method, and your partner died, but we're gonna give you this young black cop, and you're gonna learn to deal with it." And like, dang, they work together really well. Well, in this, then you have a woman cop, right? And then now you've got a black woman who's the white male, because that's become the normative. And what's weird then? Like, what could you possibly have that's your rookie cop? Well, it's a dinosaur. It's a crazy. It's a dinosaur is kind of maybe a joke about the white male, and the movie goes deeper into that as well. But also, he's this new, interesting. He's into Shintoism. He's a vegetarian. They meditate. They do yoga. All this stuff, and they're trying to stop this conspiracy, which is this Davos Bilderberg UN convention kind of thing, where they're going to freeze the world over and everybody's going to die, except for the people that have genetically modified themselves with this vaccine made of jellyfish or some kind of weird fish that can freeze and then start swimming again when it defrosts. And so some people will survive it, and some of the creatures will survive it. And the whole plan is to let the world become natural again. And it's, this is like imprinted from a pretty early age, this idea of like a natural reset. It's not just an economic reset, it's an environmental. Let's see if I can find the environmental reset, which is the big plan. And this is why they're telling you're not allowed to gather firewood. This is why they have the Codex Alimentarius. This is what the Rio Summit was for, and the Agenda 21 pilot programs was to prepare for this point of usury tax and carbon taxes. But in general, we're about to see a point where they reintroduce mammoths. Oh, and I suck at like sequencing today, but there was one I wanted to show you guys. This is actually, I should have shown you these ones first. There's a couple I need to show you about Antarctica. Space Power China to build ground stations on Antarctica to support satellites. So they're going to Antarctica. They're going to build rocket launching facilities in Antarctica, which I'm pretty sure was against the rules, but they're doing it anyway. And they're going to build, so they're building the ground stations to monitor. And when this happened, announced, it was just discovered today, or at least maybe the last couple of days, 17-pound meteorite, likely hidden for millennia, they say, as hidden perfectly intact.
Mm-hmm.
And some sort of a weird Kaba rock kind of thing. 16.7 pounds, 7.6 kilograms. Of the 45,000 meteorites discovered in Antarctica, only around 100 have been as heavy as this cosmic cannonball. And their story is that meteors don't shatter as much in Antarctica. They actually land in more solid pieces. They're not torn up as much by the ionosphere or into the stratosphere. But yeah, look at that. It just reminded me of the scene in DuckTales. You know what I'm talking about? With the pyramid. And they like trip over the tip of a pyramid and then they have to dig up.
I do, yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, if we could, I gotta be really careful with DuckDuckGo, man. I don't know what that was, but I'm pretty scared already. But then again, mammoth mastodons, the whole thing is that these were all up and down the Western Hemisphere. So that's where they'd have to return to.
So like it seems really easy to bring up, but like what was the central message of Jurassic Park? The original Jurassic Park.
Life finds a way.
Yeah, well, life finds a way, but you can't necessarily assume that you can control it. And
greed will find a way to destroy it as well.
Yeah.
No. Greed doesn't destroy life. Well, it destroys your own life. You can lose
destroys society. And
one can lose oneself to greed. Agreed. Okay, how about that? But that's different because Jurassic Park's all about how it's so like life is so powerful. It's really Jurassic Park is very similar to Alien, the movie, right? With the weird stuff that drips, the acidic stuff that just melts out of their jaws through the ship and everything. That is, and in a lot of ways, Alien's about femininity and about rape, right? Because it's about impregnation and all of these. There's a lot of levels of what Alien's about. But part of the deal with Alien is that DNA finds a way. And Jurassic Park is about the same thing. That man, mechanics, science, our control, none of that is as powerful as this Promethean godlike thing that is life. Life somehow takes anything and devours it and turns it into life. It's not death that wins. Like death is you lose yourself, but then you become consumed by life and whatever carbon, right? Carbon is the production of fire. And then it's also the building blocks for life. So it's terrifying.
Jurassic Park is also about scientific arrogance. Like that's probably
true.
A whole set of terms.
Chaos theory, baby.
So yeah, it's interesting that the Jurassic Park book is a bit different. But there's some similarities. Sure. For instance, it is about a UCSC chaos professor because chaos theory came from Santa Cruz. And so he's supposed to be the Santa Cruz professor from my hometown, which I thought was really funny. But the other thing was they were trying to genetically modify frogs. And James Mottram eventually changed the story, or he's now says it really should have been ostriches or some kind of bird. But this is happening now. I mean, and this Chickanosaurus. I can never spell. So by taking the DNA of a chicken and turning on and off every single sequence, eventually they're able to figure out which sequences were the ones that had turned off for teeth. The ones that had protruded the jaw out of the face as a beak. The ones that turned feathers on and off, right? The ones that allow for shedding. I mean, because these are reptiles. So the more that they start to play with this, the more they're able to create the monsters of our fantasy. And most of these dinosaurs did not exist this way, right? Like 19th century misconceptions, dinosaurs. We're trying right now so hard to make up these bones that we found in the 19th century. And we're like, oh, this must be the biggest monster. And it's the king of the monsters. And it's never that case. It's always like a vulture or a condor or an iguana, right? Or something like that. And then none of these things are really that far off from the things that are around today.
Chicken with teeth. That just sounds awful.
I mean, that's the thing, is that all these animals used to have that, supposedly, and that they eventually lost their teeth because of maybe, I mean, who's to say? But if there really was some sort of an environmental disaster of some kind, right? Volcanic worldwide devastation. If birds aren't unable to fly, and so for most of the places they die out, except for where eggs have been landed by the largest birds or off to the side. So places like New Zealand, then after the sky is blacked out, the things that survive most likely are the birds. So even though there might have been all sorts of other life that existed before whatever devastation, whether it's a meteor or volcano system that goes off, we don't know what survived really, or we don't know what existed before that. But we do know that birds and small mammals are the likeliest things to have made it, right? And birds entrapped in eggs, and also cockroaches. So those are the three things that mostly interact to this, like reptiles, certain kinds of amphibians maybe, but the insect kingdom. And they're still here, right?
Yeah. And if your prey selection gets smaller, then you don't need teeth to eat it.
There you go, dog.
Man. This is a big thing, though, is that the birds fly off the coast and they collect, they nest these islands. And so there's a lot of islands that humans don't live on that are just bird islands. They just have thousands of eggs.
It's cool.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah, man.
Let me see.
Fascinating stuff right there. I can't wait to have a baby mammoth. I want there to be pygmy mammoths, though. Bring back, like,
yeah, how long till they do that?
The pygmy Siberian
domesticated one.
rhinoceros.
The pygmy what?
Siberian rhinoceros. Oh, there was Siberian rhinoceros. They weren't pygmy, though. They were giant beasts, too, just like the mastodons and the mammoths and all of the megafauna that existed 12,000 years ago. Just giant humans, probably.
I've definitely seen them talking about it, but I know that it's just been such a big goal to do the mastodon. So I get the feeling that the dodo bird and the mastodon are going to be the ones you hear about first. But definitely the future is bringing back all of the extinct species, and probably it looks like creating some Chicanosaurus, like creating some more weird things and introducing them. And you could see this as being part of this, techno Gaianism idea. Not safe search isn't going to let me look for that. But if you could start to create species that would be part of this new nature, then nobody could complain, right? Because, let's say in 100 years, people are all born after this started. They're living in this new nature. So who's to say this isn't natural? And that'll be the beginning of a lot of things. I mean, what if you create species that are able to have amounts of human consciousness so that you can have a better pet? We already have horses are pretty smart, right? But if you had a partially human spaceship or something, then you could do even better. It seems crazy, but it's not that far off. The idea of putting a mind of a human inside of a machine or combining it to create humanoid slaves. I don't know. Too crazy?
Good questions. Good question. Who knows?
I feel like I'm too scared to look up humanoid slaves even. There's no safe place on the internet anymore.
Domestication is partially that of us sharing our consciousness with other species. Well, we think of how many animal species wouldn't be here if humans didn't evolve. There'd be a lot of species that aren't here, but mostly domestic animals. And I think they've, if you think about a lot of the species of animals that share our qualities, I think most of them you'd point to household pets a lot of the time. And of course, like chimpanzees, because we evolved very closely to a lot of chimps, apes, whatever. But Also, it's undeniable that canines and felines, especially, have evolved along with us for thousands of years, if not way, way longer than that. And yeah, I think it's not done. That's for sure. It's like, I don't know. It goes both ways because I think about all these dog breeds that just are totally like dysmorphic and they cough themselves to death at the age of 6. I'm like, this probably isn't the best thing, but like, I don't think wolves express bouts of happiness very often as like a domesticated dog does, and that's supposed to be a reflection of the better parts of ourselves as people.
I mean, what if we just think he's happy because his face learned to mimic our face over generations?
What if he's so inbred he just can't?
He can't even breathe. Yeah, that's the thing. And then I think a wolf is probably pretty happy when he eats a salmon or something, right? Like, you know, I feel like a wolf.
Sure, he is.
Do I think wolves are? They totally have a consciousness.
Yeah, wolves are happy.
Oh yeah, like dogs, they dream. Cats, they dream. All animals.
And Barney.
I think we're a lot closer to dolphins.
Eh?
I forgot to mention dolphins, even though like they're not domesticated. Like dolphins are just wild.
Sure, they are.
I mean, like crazy. It's crazy to think about dolphins.
Even these strict dolphin pictures make me feel uncomfortable now. I don't know. But the deal with dolphins is also that they rape and murder, and they're a lot like humans. So I mean, dolphins rape and murder all the time. That's the thing.
Who they raping?
Sharks or each other, or what's
each other? Dolphins have gangs. Dolphins have gangs.
Let's not go there.
The dark side of dolphins, they kidnap, rape, and murder other dolphins and humans. Dozens of cases of dolphins attacking humans are reported each year. Vikings attack dolphins. I can see like they're very similar. In the popular perception, dolphins are intelligent and cheerful animals that frolic amicably in the waves.
I mean, that doesn't mean they're not intelligent.
Dolphins are like unicorns and magical and nice and flipper.
Aborigines thought these were visitors from Sirius, and in ancient Greece, it was illegal to kill. It was a death sentence to kill a dolphin. But yeah, dolphins are in gangs. Look, they even call it a gang. They beat each other up. They rob other animals. Like they take young, they kill, they enslave females. There's dolphin trafficking. I mean, it's a really intricate society that they have underneath there. You gotta understand.
If they have a higher capacity for evil, if we perceive it that way, then they objectively have a higher set of consciousness than the rest of the animal world. And it's probably a lot closer to us than we want to admit. Just because they're not building buildings doesn't mean that they're not like wildly conscious things, you know?
Honestly, they're better off. I mean, they're basically flying around in this perfect environment. But who's to say that it's evil for dolphin, or that dolphin considers it evil? I mean, is this just the chaos that exists in dolphin world? It's Mad Max, but in the Caribbean. It's a beautiful post-apocalypse for a dolphin. They're naked and murdering each other all the time, and they're laughing. They're laughing, right?
Well, how often do they commit these types of acts?
It's pretty common.
How frequent is this?
So in the youth of a dolphin, often what happens is they start to hit a puberty period. And when they hit puberty, they're beat up by the dolphins that are a little deeper into puberty. And it's worse than anything you've heard out of Penn State. I'll tell you that. And you can see the sides of the dolphins. That wasn't a dig at Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. I just meant like that was the thing I remember.
No, I'm just saying like it must be bad then.
No, yeah, I mean these dolphins get these scars and stuff because they like nip at them and they attack them, and it's straight up. It's as bad as anything you've ever heard of humans doing, for sure.
Wow.
But is it illegal? You ever see a dolphin pulling over a dolphin for speeding? Or no, they don't have law and order necessarily. They just have order, maybe. And it's like a dolphin eat dolphin system. Also, they don't sleep, right? That's the other thing. I wonder if dolphins are psychopaths because they sleep by turning off half of their brain, and the other half of their brain kind of turns on, sort of. And they also, so part of their other brain is always functioning anyway. But it switches back and forth. So it's almost like, do they have multiple personality disorder? Like, they have to evolve. They're not quite the same, their brain, their west and east hemisphere. So I don't know. But yeah, psychopaths for sure. And then if they don't have any idea of what is evil, and this is just natural, then what does that tell you about nature? Because nature never, we have this idea of nature and we shouldn't kill, and as soon as you were thrown out into nature like wears you as a skin suit, literally. So I don't know, nature, the law of nature, it seems, is this good or bad, or is this just order and chaos?
World of forms, man. World of forms. It's all a reflection. You see, dolphins, they totally have a sense of morality. Like they just because we have different languages, like in the English language, we have the word evil. I don't know what it is in Spanish or the rest of the world, but we have a mirror image of what evil means. Like it's there. You can translate it. And so I would be convinced that, dolphins, it's pretty well known that they actually have their own language, and we're trying to actively decode it right now. So I think we're
as much as I believe that, I just want you to know it's sometimes argued still, even though John C. Lilly put so much effort into it, and they taught dolphins how to go A, B, C, D. Like, even all that happened, there's some question about whether or not they use language the same way humans do. It might be a completely different system, even though they still rely on sound. The sound waves the whales use.
There are limitations to actually our verbal system. I mean, it's great, but in the animal kingdom, there's a lot of other ways to communicate. A lot of it's just, their body language. But I think the animal kingdom is great at using time in order to communicate, because interaction between body language, even verbal language, and another human being is time. It takes time for me to communicate the sentence, whatever. But I think those can be a much more meaningful forms of communication. Like if I want to intimidate someone, I'm not going to talk to them how I'm talking to you guys now, because right now we're just bullshitting, I guess. I'm going to scream at them, or I might stare at them like I'm a psychopath and not blink. Whatever. That is much more effective at getting across what I'm trying to say.
I try to look like an orca. Look at like the white eye, fake eye thing. It's brilliant. Terrifying. Killer whale. I get it.
So yeah, it's I think we overestimate our own communication systems when we're talking about the animal world. We always just assume that we get so lost in the artistic world and into forms of medium and communicating with each other that we just assume we made it and we could just take out the animal kingdom if we wanted to, and really we can't. We're not that powerful at all.
I think that's the most interesting thing about AI, honestly, is its ability to communicate and understand how every species is communicating and be able to interact with it. That's going to be a trip, because it'll be the first ambassador since the Laotian Taoist time of being able to speak to trees, right? And this is, in so many ways, we'll be able to understand and ask a tree how it's feeling. Basically, that is science at this point. We'll know exactly how what the pig is doing.
I think the real magicians of the world are already doing that.
Right.
I think the Buddhist monks have already perfected the system, and everybody's just ignored their secrets. I read there are some monasteries out there. We got on the subject last week of currency and whether we actually need currency. There are some monasteries out there that actually do not use currency at all. So as far as having some sort of network that operates without it, it is proven to be possible. As far as giving specific examples, I guess they're the monasteries that do, from what I've read, that don't use currency, they are a little bit shy about allowing the world to know the, I guess, exactitude of their practices. So it's hard to give a really hyper specific example, but I think it's kind of known amongst I guess the deeper parts of the Buddhist community that yes, there are some monasteries that actually function without money whatsoever, but you can't find all the details of how they function, but they've managed to make a way.
Well, I definitely think it's possible, in a smaller scale type of scenario like that.
Yeah.
If you think about it, though, so if you were able to understand a golden retriever, it'd just be like, look at the ball, look at the ball, look at the car, look at the ball, look at how you're doing. Hey, look outside, you go outside, all the time. And you'd be this just because you can understand it doesn't mean it's necessarily something you want to think about. Similar with whales might just be more terrifying. An orca is thinking I bet you I could kill him. That's half of what they're thinking. They're thinking all day, I bet you if I just played with him for a while, they'd be exhausted and I could kill him. I mean, that's a crazy.
What if the golden retriever's thinking that?
No, that's what the cat thinks.
I don't know. Don't be so confident.
Cats are definitely. Come on, like a cat is just a naked drug addict that murders, and it just leaves bodies in front of your door, and it's just like, don't, you think it's a gift. It's like, it's not a gift. I murdered. To like, you clean it up. That's what cats do. Like, they're just, or I'm gonna poop in your shoe. And I just can't trust cats necessarily.
You can't trust cats, Andreas. Are you sure?
I've known some good cats.
I mean, cats are cool and all. I'm just pointing out their motivation, right? I mean, dogs are a little different. Dogs seem to have the whole motivation of like genetic, like, let's not rock the boat. We're working for the Grand Master kind of thing. It just seems like they're like, we got a good thing here. Kind of the dog wants to do what you want it to do. It's a very submissive animal compared to a cat, which is great. I think cats are great. Like, I mean, have you ever seen that or read that book, The Cat Who Walked Itself, by Rudyard Kipling?
Sounds familiar. I haven't read it, but
Cat Who Walked by Himself. Let me see if I can find the Soviet version, because that's the best one. There it is. Okay, 1968. Make sure you watch this. It's an old story, like Rudyard Kipling old, about all of the history of man. And originally, man tamed nature, and then woman tamed man, and then man and woman have a child, and then cat tames woman, basically. And the way it works is that they build the house. They're trying to keep all the snakes and animals out to protect the kid. And the cat just keeps wandering in. It's like, well, you're going to be a pet like the dog and work here? It's like, no, I'm going to do whatever I want. And then the lady's like, no, you can't just stay here. You have to like do something. It's like, I bet you if you thank me 3 times for being here, that I can stay here. I bet. And she's like, I'm never going to do that. It's like, yeah, 3 times. And she's like, okay. And then he does it. He basically gets her to say, oh, thank God. She's like, thank God the cat was here 3 times. And so the cat gets to stay, and the cat just gets to walk by himself, basically. And I think that that's been our relationship with cats since the beginning. They're like, okay, yeah, we can coexist. It might be easier, right? And this is true even for like the Los Angeles cougar, puma, whatever it is. Car crash kills famous Los Angeles cougar in federal protection program. Another South of California mountain lion in federal protection program has died after being hit by a car. I mean, these poor cats, and everyone's thinking, even me, I'm like, oh, maybe they're killing people. No, it's like never. These are pretty chill. They're like living up there trying to coexist, and they get hit by a car. So I don't know. Cats don't have to be evil. I think giant cats I think every cat should be giant. It should be human size, because that way humans have to take cats seriously, and you know what you're up against, right? And then I don't know.
Now, I heard if you are in the proximity of a puma, like you're done. Like if it sees you,
if it wants you
it's
dead,
game over.
Yeah, if it wants you dead, you're God. That is the thing. But I think pumas living in the puma living in Los Angeles was actually going along for years without killing anybody. So, I mean, I've heard stories, and someone was quick to yell at me no, that's not true. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's true that pumas kill less people than people do. So, I mean, there's that. But yeah, cats would kill you if they could, but I think they're better off not, because they own you. And that's what cats seem to do. I don't know. As you're holding your cat, doctor, no. But yeah, giant birds are really the thing. If we're going to have to let's all unite against giant birds. I'm okay with mastodons.
Birds are
Snuffleupagus is okay. Big bird's not. I do not want big bird.
What's so bad about giant birds?
I mean, again,
I
starve-crazed dinosaurs with razor-sharp jaws that have lost their teeth that can slice their jaw straight through your bone. And they just run at you 60 miles an hour.
Just don't encroach on its territory. Nothing to worry about.
Well, I mean, so originally the plains of the Andes, before they became mountains, were just
people Big Bird and Snuffleupagus.
Do you know the story of Big Bird and Snuffleupagus? How this all happened? Do you remember? So originally, Big Bird had a friend that was imaginary, named Snuffleupagus, and the kids would see this. Good call, Bert and Ernie. And people always Bert and Ernie, are they gay? No, they're puppets. But Snuffleupagus and Big Bird, they were friends, and no one could ever see Snuffleupagus. Like, I just saw Snuffleupagus, and everyone's like, sure you did, Big Bird, sure you did. But then there was a kid who was molested, and let me see if I can find the thing about it.
That went dark quickly.
Totally.
Snuffleupagus, no, Big Bird.
For 14 years, nobody would believe Big Bird when he said when he tried to tell people that he saw Mr. Snuffleupagus. After an increase in child abuse cases, producers decided to make him real so children could see that adults would believe them when they said they had something important to say. So there's this whole thing where they for a while, kids see Snuffleupagus, but nobody else sees it, and they didn't believe him. And finally, the parents go chasing down the street, and they find Snuffleupagus, and that's when they meet. And so these are, this is the ancient,
that's a bug-eyed Snuffleupagus.
the ancient mastodon, the mastodon on methadone, and then Big Bird, which I don't know what drugs he's on, but it seems like an amphetamine. It was the city. You remember what it was like? Yeah, but so it's interesting to me because we're at this point where the dodo bird, the giant bird, because the dodo's not small, it's going to be like man height. It's 3 to 6 to 7 feet tall. 3 feet is the smallest one we think, and it was probably a lot larger, maybe 5 to 6 feet tall generally. And it introduces the mastodon, right? And so it just feels kind of interesting, especially when you know about Ferngully and Jim Henson and created Ferngully to end wars. You know that Jim Henson was literally trying to end wars by creating Ferngully. And so when you know his connection to Tavistock and how the Muppets were created in Britain with the control and help of the British government and Tavistock, it just seems like a very Davos kind of thing that they were in the process of saying, okay, and the future will come. And this is the end of Sesame Street and the beginning of Ferngully or Fraggle Rock. Nobody's scared of mastodons. I don't know. I feel like the mastodon thing is
Fraggle Rock.
Well, don't blame me when mastodons crush over your house and you won't be able to do anything because of environmental disaster laws. That's all I'm saying. It's coming. I've had friends in Botswana and they have to let rhinos trample their house and elephants trample their house. It's like the law. So just wait for that in Nevada or in Toronto. I don't know about Toronto. You guys will probably have like a city that keeps out the giant mastodons. All right, well, we're 2 hours deep. Let me try to show people where they can get your content. Divulgence Podcast. Divulgence Podcast, Jordan, which right now this is live on Divulgence Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed and watching. We didn't really even talk about the Goose slumps, right? But the stock market's down in Canada. We'll get into Goose another time. But make sure you subscribe to Jordan because he's got some amazing episodes. This is the one he did recently with Kurt, American Time Machine.
That one was really good. I watched that the other day.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, already at 500 views. Guys, keep watching this. Make sure you're checking it out. I'll repost it in the Discord. And then you can listen to Kurt's music. Go to Spotify, American Time Machine, and the new album, The World is a Person, which is pretty exciting.
Can you
some left and right sound?
Can you screen share sound or no?
No, not yet. I'll use a Windows laptop next time for that.
If you want to use that song I sent you that's not released yet, that should be fine. Well,
okay.
At any point.
All right, cool. I will set that up for next week. I didn't set that up yet because I've just been busy. But which one is? Yeah, which is it on here somewhere?
It's the one. No, it's not.
It's not on here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll play that.
You were talking about mixing it on analog your tapes.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'll record. I'll send you. I'll record the cassette tape and re-upload it. So it's interesting. Also, is been using this thing called Magic Dice, which will take your sound waves and it kind of throws them to the left and the right channel, which is really crazy. I like it a lot. But also, Stephanie Scott, go to stephaniescott.bigcartel.com and you can buy her merch. And then also Stephanie Scott's Instagram page right here.
Should I be sending you the URL to that? Sorry, I'm kind of oblivious to what I'm supposed to do here.
No, it's okay. I can do that. Did Vince put his link there though? Because I always screw it up, but I think I can find Vince's link too. But yeah, make sure you go to Stephanie Scott with 2 S's and you can subscribe. And let's see, what is Vince's page? You did, yeah, something like that. All right.
It's Burning Sage Saga.
Every time. No, I can't. He has another page. That's why.
Oh, okay.
So he just put out the Alice in Wonderland. I'm gonna get Alex Jones' voice. Oh my god. He just put out this Alice in Wonderland video. They're turning the freaking frogs, yeah. All right. It's pretty sweet actually, and it's not too long, and it'll tell you some things about Alice in Wonderland that you haven't heard before. So I recommend it. It's also a really cool painting of her coming out of the looking glass on this checkered floor. It's a pretty cool video. So make sure you go to Burning Stage Saga, and then put to Vulgence Podcast, Crypto Alchemist. Make sure you check out Bernie's channel, like and subscribe, Crypto Alchemist, and also Burneye.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Which is live right now. Make sure you're liked and subscribed and getting all of these channels as many likes as you can. All right. I'm going to not be able to do a show tomorrow. Oh, that's okay though, because David Ewing Jr.'s video is coming out. So I will take some chamomile tea.
Yeah, you honey, lemon, chamomile, everything on that throat and get better, sir.
I'll be all right. I mean, you have to expect a certain point, the amount I'm talking, this is going to happen. But thank you for being here.
I tried doing a 48-hour stream. I lost my voice by the end of it. So I'm fierce.
You did a 48-hour stream?
Yeah, the last 16 hours of it, I was sleeping on the couch. And it's so fun to watch her. 20 people watching. Campbell can attest to this.
You were a wild man. All right. Love you all. See you next time. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Pam.
Have a good night.
Peace.
Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who have lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively kind. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our